Well, hey, and welcome to the Becoming Better podcast. My name's Nate. I'm so glad you guys are here. Well, on today's episode, Jason, Josh, and I sit down and we discuss last week's sermon. And I want to tell you, if you haven't listened to last week's sermon, I want you to pause here and give that a listen, as it will help make this conversation make more sense to you. On this week's podcast, we talk about the sun standing still and how crazy that would be. And then we dive into what Paul says about the church and what the church actually is. It's not a building, but it's the group of people gathering together. We didn't have any questions today, so it's going to be a little shorter of an episode. But if you have any questions about any of these sermons, send that to our website, www.quadcity.church/podcast. You can submit questions after you hear the message, and we'd love to answer any of those questions you have on the show. Well, this week we'll have community meal on Tuesday. So if you don't want to cook a meal Tuesday night, you can come to our Prescott campus and have a meal with us. We'd love to spend some time and dig into some community during the week. You can get here at 5 o'clock, and that's when we'll have dinner. Other than that, we have other things happening around campus. You can see all of that at our website, quadcity.church/events, and you can see everything happening throughout the next month. So if you want to see what's going on, you can see us there. But other than that, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. All right, how's it going, guys?
Happy Monday, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
So I was kind of just reading, and I want to talk about something in our Bibles. Open your Bibles to Joshua, everybody. Everybody.
Oh, I'm in Joshua.
Grab your Bible. Pause.
Half the people got to go pause right now.
Yep.
If you're driving,
just
don't
pull
hold on.
over.
Yep.
Don't look it up.
Kmart.
Yep. So go to Joshua 10, and I think you guys know where I'm going.
I don't, but
No?
Where are we going? Joshua 10. Okay.
So this is.
Why do I feel like I'm being set up?
I know. I don't know. I don't know if we like this.
No, we don't like it.
So now go to verse 13, and it says, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Agilion." So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped. So the nation avenged itself on its enemies, as is written in the book of Jashir. And then the next sentence: "The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down for a full day." How crazy would it be us sitting in Prescott, Arizona at this time, and time doesn't I guess time's still moving, but the sun doesn't move, and it'd be dark for us. So I was just sitting there reading this and thinking, man, how would you guys feel if you guys were around this time and you either have the moon up or you have nothing?
Nutty.
But again, it's weird because Joshua asked the Lord to do this.
Yeah.
And he did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, it's so even crazier. So I'm on Twitter just a second ago, or X, whatever you call it. And it shows a time-lapse video. Because I was looking for Bantercoin. I didn't know if we had one, but I was just on there. That's where I get most of my good things. But anyways, a guy filmed the sun for 3 straight years in the same place. And the sun, you watch it, and it makes essentially an infinity symbol.
Yep,
it does.
And I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And just again, a reminder of whoa, look what the God has done in the roundness of our world.
Yep.
But it's neither here nor there. But it was amazing. It was
we're on a
use
disc.
that as an example of why it's not.
But that's us move. Yeah. But anyways, it was amazing. I was just like, wow. Even that blew me away. I can't imagine the sun. Is that
so? It's like being in
Alaska,
right?
Yeah,
where the sun stayed still. It doesn't ever go down.
Yep.
Even in Montana in the summer, 10 o'clock at night and the sun's still up.
Oh, I'm excited. We're getting closer.
Wait, what?
We're getting close to the longest day of the year.
I thought you were talking about
June 21st. No, June 21st, baby.
Yeah.
Longest day of the year.
Yeah. So, I just read that and I was like, I wonder what that would have felt like for everybody else that has no context of what Joshua's asking God to do,
Yeah.
and
No,
how
it would be mind-boggling for sure. You would
and
think something's up.
and just thinking through, like, I bet I don't know if this is true or not, but, like, the Aztecs probably were, like, sacrificing people, like, trying to get the
Trying to get the sun to get
sun to
moving
keep
again.
going, like, panicking or, you know, just other tribes just like, "Alright, we're gonna sacrifice you because the sun stopped and we don't know why, so we gotta sacrifice something."
Now, the funny thing
So,
is you can Google, and obviously I didn't hear this until you just asked it, so I don't have it in front of me, but you could Google, like, there are people who have done research to go back because, um, we can follow astronomy as far back as we can forward, right? We
yep,
know how these things orbit and how they, and there is a lost day or people that go back and they will tell you, "Oh, this is when it happened." Like,
yeah,
they can point to the thing, and so, whether it's true or not, or if they're just making
yeah,
stuff up, I don't know. But there are claims on there of, "Oh, we can actually see this in the historical record of astronomy."
yeah,
I feel like you would
crazy.
have wrote that down. Again, I know they wrote it in this book,
Mhm,
but I feel like some other people probably wrote that down in their book too.
yep,
Like, hey, there's this one day we were there and it didn't move.
didn't,
We're just all day going, something's going on. And then
yep.
tomorrow is fine. Like, could you imagine? Like, you just wake up going, you probably are going to bed going, hey, this is it. This is it.
Yeah,
This is all she wrote. It's
yep,
been a good one. Like, life has been good as far as they know it.
yeah.
And then they're going to bed going, honey, it's been fun. It's been good. They wake up the next day and go, oh, well, it's just back to normal.
Yep,
Because again, there's not very many people who are Israelites following this God,
mhm.
you know? But I'm telling everybody if I'm Joshua. Like I said, that was me. Like we, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Like
I asked him, he did it.
we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Now you're getting into Stephen Furtick language.
Really?
Yeah, he wrote a book.
About this?
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
No. Are you all Do you all not know this?
He wrote a book about this?
Yes.
It's like orange and yellow, right? The book?
It's called Sun Stand Still or something. It's yeah.
To hold up. So he wrote a book about this
Yeah.
to help people ask God to do things on their behalf.
Big prayers.
I don't
Yeah.
Is
think
the big
I
Sun
don't
idea.
stand still. Yep.
I don't
Sun
think
Stand Still.
I don't think
There you
that's
go.
the point.
You can say it's not, but Furtick would disagree with you.
And then it says, "What happens when you dare to ask God for the impossible?"
There you go.
That's
See?
the title.
I cannot believe you
Yeah.
didn't have this book dog-eared in your office right now.
That's hurtful. That you would that's I think that's the most hurtful thing you've ever said. You said some hurtful things. That is beyond hurtful. I don't even like dislike him, but man, that's hurtful. Yeah, I never heard of it.
Yeah.
Never heard it. That's not surprised. Like the prayer of Jabez. Like
Yes.
one little line we wrote a whole book on.
Yeah.
It's Mark Batterson's the In a Pit with a Line on a Snowy Day,
Mhm.
the story of Benaniah. He wrote a whole book on that. Got his whole thing started. That's a sweet story though. That guy was like a mighty warrior of David, and he did kill a lion in a pit on a snowy day. All of those things did happen, and he wrote a whole book on it.
Mhm.
I just get real leery of the Old Testament stuff like that. Andy Stanley says a line like that, like, "Don't preach the Old Testament like it's certainty, like, but like
Mhm.
promises that you can kind of like hold on." Yeah, I don't know. Can't remember his line how he says it, but I always when I come to the Old Testament, I always have to frame it in this was for a very certain group of people.
Yeah.
What God was doing on behalf of the Israelites, and knowing that there were benefits, of course, for us and Jesus and all that. But I just always am like,
Well, I think my tension would be we take historical accounts and try to make, uh, allegory principles out of it. So
yeah,
Mhm.
that's what's happening in this
Yeah.
story, is we take this story of a historical account that God did this miraculous thing and made the sun stand still, and so we then turn that into an allegorical account with some kind of principle that has modern day, and I that's where I go to little side. Preach it as a historical account.
Yeah.
I don't know that your allegorical principles are the thing that we should be. So I agree with you a little bit. I'd frame it a little bit different. I don't know that I wouldn't say it.
What do you mean?
I don't know. It sounded like you were like discounting the Old
No,
Testament a little bit.
no, not discounting the Old Testament, but that's Andy Sanders' point was I'm not going because he had the whole thing about trying to unhitch the Old Testament. I'm not trying to
Yes.
get into that.
Yeah.
No, but he was saying like there are these we claim them as promises for
Correct.
us. It's the one that you always talk about, the Exodus 14:14.
That one makes me crazy.
So please, just share that, please. Just leave people with, just as you're about to ride off for a couple, leave them with one last thing to
Okay.
just bring their heart. Because we've already crushed. Somebody read that verdict book, and they're like,
did.
"Oh man, I was praying those prayers." Oh,
Okay, so here's the one that I get all the time that just lights me up. It just gets me so frustrated.
You want me to read it?
Sure, you have it in front of you?
Yeah.
All right.
The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still.
Okay. So the context of this is the Israelites are being brought out of Egypt. They've bumped up against the Red Sea, so they can't go forward. The Red Sea's in front of them. Behind them is the Egyptian army, and they are coming in. So the people of Israel are being compressed on one side by the Egyptian army and the Red Sea on the other. And Moses is the one who is speaking in this moment. And he says to the people, hey, don't worry. Just the Lord's going to fight for you. Just be still. Right. So that's the quote, right?
Yep.
So you see this everywhere. It's a meme. I guarantee you Google it up and there is this. It's a meme everywhere.
or the you go buy it at like Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
Hobby Lobby.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's on Hobby Lobby. The last time Josh heard me rant about it, we were at a Mediterranean restaurant down in in Phoenix.
Yeah.
I was trying to think Happy Valley, right
Yeah.
off of Happy Valley. And so we're down there and it's up above the cashier and just the Lord will fight for you. Just be still. And it chaps my hide. And I'm like, because here's why. Because Nate, I want you to read the very next verse. Okay. So Moses stands in front of the people and says, the Lord will fight for you. Just be still. Now read the next verse.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on."
Very next verse is God says to Moses, what are you doing still standing here? Tell him to get up and move. So Moses tells him, don't worry, the Lord's going to fight for you. Just be still. And God says, you're giving them dumb advice. Get up and stop crying out to me and move. So I just think it's dumb. You got to read it. Just read it. I actually got into a Facebook fight one time with Craig Groeschel Ministries because they posted that dumb verse. And I'm like, don't you have a Bible that gives you the next verse? Moses was wrong. He shouldn't have told him that. God tells him, get up, stop your whining to me, and move. So there you go.
And this one more again, but that's what we do.
Yeah.
We take
Yep.
those things that are great, and it's like, oh man,
Yep.
And somebody has that Hobby Lobby in their office right now.
100%. There's like over their door frame.
That's right.
Like-
I'm just saying, put the next verse under it. Well, if you have that one, just add the next.
I'm gonna add a shop and just put 15. Like just have that Exodus 14:15
Just do 50
on board. Yeah, just 15.
Just 15. Like, what are you doing?
Why are you crying
Go.
out to me?
Stop it.
Stop crying out to me. Like you whining to me isn't going to fix this problem. Move.
Yep.
That's what he says to them.
I'm gonna get stickers made.
Oh,
Start putting them on cars. So,
goodness. Yeah. So there you go. Oh, the rabbit hole you took us
Yep.
down. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
awesome. Well, we're in week 30 of our series, and yeah. So, Josh, as I pull up my notes, what'd you think about Sunday?
Yeah, it's interesting. Just a couple of texts, almost as a wrap up of what he's been talking. Not a complete wrap up because Paul's going to keep going and giving young Timothy instructions, but it's kind of like a middle recap of like, hey, I left you, fix the problems.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest problems, it wasn't just outsiders. There was some outsiders who were problems and some insiders who were problems, the false teachers in that way, I mean. But also, there's also just people not doing what they were supposed to within the order of the church. So he leaves them all these instructions of like, hey, not only is false teaching dangerous, but the order of how we govern ourselves in the household of God is also super important. And I've left you these instructions. And then he ends with just the gospel, like a
Mm.
great reminder. And you said the line in there. I told you on Wednesday when we read your sermon. Um, if Paul isn't delayed, we don't even get this letter,
Yeah.
Mm.
which was so, I'd never thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, that's true. He would have just told him to his face,
Yep.
Timothy, dude, these people are running amok up in this house. Get it together. But he doesn't. So he
Yeah.
sends him the letter, which also, to your point, shows the importance. Like he couldn't wait.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, I have to tell him
Yep.
these. Like he was like, he's leaving. Hey, I promise though, I'm gonna come back and tell you these things. He's like, oh, I'm not coming back. Oh man, I can't make it back. So I gotta tell him. I told him I was gonna tell him. So now I
Yeah.
gotta tell him, So
Yeah, I think it gives such authority. What I love about it is he didn't even write this stuff in the book of Ephesians, like to the letters to the whole church. He writes this to Timothy. He gives Timothy authority
yeah.
to
Mm,
to put this stuff in order, right? And again, I think if Paul would have gotten there, he would have probably called a family meeting. Like he'd have
Yeah.
got the whole church together and said, "Okay, I've shared this stuff with you all before. We're not doing it right. Let me do a recap and just dink,
mhm.
dink, 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 and walk through all of this." Again, we talked about elders last week, but I go back to this church had elders for almost a decade. Like
Right,
there's elders in Acts chapter 20, 3 years after the church has already started. They had elders in place. He met with
right.
them. And so it's not like they didn't know to have elders and deacons. It's just they somewhere in that last 10 years, they had the wrong
Mm.
elders
Right.
and deacons. And so he goes and says, these are the kinds of men that need to be in this role. And so again, I think Paul would have just stood up and had a whole family meeting, just pouring all of this out, putting the whip to people in the church because they went sideways. But in doing it this way, he actually empowers this young pastor Timothy with
Mm.
the understanding and the knowledge to stand up and begin to make these changes even with Paul absent.
So what's interesting is typically they would have read, the letter to the Ephesians, we talk about all the time, same with the letter to the Romans and all that,
Yeah.
to the church. My wonder is did Timothy stand up and go, hey, got a letter from Paul. I'm gonna read it.
Yeah.
And just like slow down. Did he just slow down and look at people when he got to certain parts and just kind of side eye him like, he's talking about you.
Did you hear that part? Did you catch that?
You want to read
Yeah.
it again? I'll do it one more time. If you'd like me to read it one more time, let me just share this with you because I will share it with you one more. But again, I
Yeah.
do wonder if the whole church, like I'm sure they eventually heard all of this, but again, in the context, normally
Yeah.
they would have heard all of these letters to the churches. So
Yeah.
it's just really interesting. And like to your point, you said something about they didn't really have a Bible. In one of the books, The Destroyer of the Gods, they talk about one of the things about the New Testament and the people of God is the reference they use is they were a bookish people.
That's right.
They had high literacy rates and they actually wrote and passed down a lot of this. So they didn't have the Bible constructed
Right.
as we did, but they would like I wonder if Timothy's like, hey, I'm gonna need you just write down chapter 2. You keep
Yeah.
you keep that at your house right there. And you
Among them are Hymenaeus and Alexander.
hey, just let them hold. But you do think like Paul is so personal in this.
Yeah.
To your point, he had specific people in mind
Oh, for sure.
when he wrote these critiques.
Yeah.
It's not general for him.
Yeah.
I would say that the book does end. Grace be with you all. So there is an expectation,
Mm,
I think, at the very end that eventually everybody's, but the last verses 17 through 21 of chapter 6 was the very end, reads a bit like a postscript.
mm,
And so I think the actual ending of the letter is verse 16. But then he kind of has this postscript at the end. And at the end of that postscript, he says, Grace be with
right.
you all. So I think he wanted to express gratitude to the whole church. But I do think that this was primarily to Timothy. I
Yeah.
think this is a personal letter. He doesn't call Hymenaeus out and Alexander out in the book of Ephesians, right? He doesn't do
Right.
that.
Right.
And even in First Corinthians, when there's a gentleman who's caught in
He
sin,
doesn't name them.
he doesn't name them.
Right.
But in this personal letter to Timothy, he puts names in there to say, this is the guy. Like, you need to watch out for these two. They're doing
Right.
evil in the church. Like, so I think it is different. I think it is different.
And then clearly the the church, like the Big C church, really early on, began to go, "Oh my goodness, this is not just helpful for the church in Ephesus. This
Right.
is helpful information for all of us," which
Yeah.
is why they canonized it into the Bible.
Yep.
Because before they did that, the entire church saw this as stuff that was helpful, right? It's and again, if you're Hymenaeus and Alexander, we're hoping they came back,
Yeah.
but as they show up again in Second Timothy, one of them does, and you're like, man, maybe they didn't,
Right.
but they're in there forever. Like if their mama's going to that church, they're
Yep.
like,
Yep.
oh, these children, like just embarrassed, like, oh yeah, that's my baby,
Yep.
that's the mine. So again, I just thought that point was so helpful for me again, and it was just a thing to sit for me to go, man, I am super grateful that we have this letter that has all of these and it's not without its difficulty.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
honestly, it'd been a lot easier if Paul didn't write these things down. Probably at
All
some
of
time.
chapter 2.
All of chapter 2 would have been so much easier, but it was just such a powerful reminder. I was like, "Man, that is." I really did enjoy that. I sat with that again, like I said, Wednesday and even then again on Sunday going, "Man," and then your example of reminder, how many churches from the outside are taken
Yeah.
down? None. I
Right.
Yep.
was 4 people raised their hand.
Yeah.
I would like to question them. I'm
And
gonna be honest with you.
and 1 or 2 of them actually came up and said, "I misunderstood.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the devil. I wouldn't actually think." So
No.
so they misunderstood.
Because
Yeah.
persecution, the church grows.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we've seen for
Yeah.
2,000 years is the church explodes when persecution happens. It never shrinks away. It actually finds new ways to gather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to your point, I don't know if anyone has not heard at least some kind of story of some kind of church that you go, "Man, they're just," it's not just maybe the leaders necessarily like a sexual scandal. It's also what David talked about last week was that they didn't stand on the word anymore.
Yeah.
I know Gibney talks about that he
Yeah.
had a church that they grew up in, and now it's a is
Islam's community center.
so they
Islamic
changed. It used to be a
community center.
church his whole family for generations had gone to, and now they moved away from the word and the church closed, right?
Yep.
They didn't
Mm.
preach the gospel
Yeah.
anymore. And so that same kind of thing just going, man, so I love that reminder of how important this is really actually matters.
Yep.
And we know it does because Ephesians or the church in Ephesus, they clearly didn't listen.
Right.
They
Yeah. Well, it sound again, we'll get there, but,
yeah,
we get to the end and it's yeah, you've held on to the doctrine piece, but you lost the love piece. So
right.
Yeah.
you gotta have both of
So
these.
they
Yeah, we
swing the
went to
wrong way.
legalism
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
yeah.
But no, really, really good. I thought there was a lot of that was super helpful this weekend, real practical.
Yeah. Jason, would you wanted to have added anything in before you closed out?
I don't think there was much to add. I think it was helpful for me just in my own study to look at this song again and be reminded of the value of it. One of the things that let me say this. One of the things that I didn't put in that I had in my preliminary notes that didn't make it into the manuscript is again just the value of the things that we sing. And one of the things I was going to mention was uh, some of you may or may not have known, we sang a song for a month leading up to Easter and even on Easter, a song that our worship team wrote.
Yeah.
And so they actually created a song to put the Easter story into context for Quad City. These were our people putting words to music that we could sing over and with one another to be reminded of the goodness of God in the resurrection of Jesus. And so this reading this song again, that he appeared in the flesh, was vindicated in the spirit, was seen by angels, preached among the nations, putting that gospel story to music
Mhm.
for their context and singing that over. I love the fact that our own talented worship leaders did that for us. And so again, I think it just speaks to the value that when we sing this stuff, it goes into our soul in a way
Yeah.
that just reading a prose, putting just these verses alone, it just does something different when we sing them into our soul. And so um, I love the fact that we had that. And, we've been talking about what that looks like moving forward for our church. But I think me sitting with this text just affirmed in me the value of it. And again, going back to Ephesians chapter 5, where Paul says,
Mm.
"Speak to one another in songs, hymns, and songs from the Spirit."
Mm,
Like, he wants us to do that, and I love that he gave us an example of it.
Yeah, I
yeah.
was one of my footnotes on the one of the ones, the preach to the nations, it's Psalm 9:11 talks about literally it left a footnote and I turned to Psalm 9:11 and it says, and he will be preached to the nations. And it's
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, that's yeah, God said it was gonna happen. He
yeah,
Yeah.
of what God has done. Huh,
yeah.
it worked. He did it. Again,
And
just
there and so think about this then, take it that to the another level. They took this psalm and that became the lyric
yeah,
to this song
yeah.
that we have here
Because they
in
would have for
First
sure
Timothy.
known
Oh,
it.
for sure.
Yeah.
Again, it's not an accident
That
that
was
they
their
would
Bible.
yeah, that they would have went, "Oh, yeah, that's that." Again, just so many of the Psalms do point ahead to what God would eventually do, right? They're
Yeah.
prophetic in that way, and so, again, just reading that going, "Man, this is" to your point, the John 1 piece and the flesh and, like, all of the things, the Romans so how much of that this song was based in scripture, this
Oh, all of
creed.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that's the thing, it's
Yeah.
like, this wasn't just things they were saying, there's also like, we can look at,
Yeah.
where it finds its value from. So, really yeah, really fun to write all those little scripture notes down to
Yeah.
kinda put it down there.
Yeah. And heads up, for our people, we're actually singing that song next Sunday.
Oh, great.
So it's gonna be the first song we sing, so make sure
And
if you wanna hear it
This
what's the name
Sunday.
of it?
this Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, Psalm 30 well, you just named it Psalm
34
34.
Forgiven
Yeah.
Yeah.
is the name of the song.
And you
So
know it's ours because it has a line in there if anybody hadn't heard it. It just kinda says,
Straight from the podcast,
"Hey,
baby.
hey, they're sinners." That kinda
Yep.
is the
Yep.
line.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully, if you've sung it, every time I hear it, I chuckle just a little bit because it's ours. Like, that
Yep.
was the coolest part is, yeah, as David put some words to it, and, like, that is one of the things we just ultimately
We own it.
we own it.
We own it.
That's who
We're
we are.
sinners and
Yep.
we need to be saved by grace.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, that line's in there. So now hopefully everybody listens a little bit more like, "Oh,
Yep.
interesting. Very interesting.
And
Interesting."
and
So
now you know the rest of the story.
Yes. Yes.
So, Jason, one thing that did pop out to me, from this message that I kinda wanna ask and kinda dig in a little more is, uh uh, where he's talking about where you were mentioning, like, the the deacons kinda yelling at the kids for running around in the
Which,
church
by the
building.
way, I had several people come up and say, "Oh, for sure. That was totally
Yep.
that really happened. Yes, I remember that time when." Yeah,
Yep.
for
So,
sure.
but, it had me thinking more so about, the body of Christ not being the building, but the people,
Yeah.
and just thinking more so about our people online, and kinda the question is, how do we challenge them to either get plugged in, uh, with their community or plug into this body? Uh,
Yeah,
so
that's a great question. And I think, again, it points to a problem that Paul wasn't addressing, right?
Mm,
That wasn't an issue in a time where community was the expectation of all the people, like hospitality, community. That
mm,
was a huge deal. And in our day, we've replaced um, community with content. And so
mm,
oftentimes when we think about church online, we're trying to get we want to we see value in the content, but we don't see value in the community oftentimes.
mm,
And so one of the things that we decided to do, and we had um, a real discussion, a staunch conversation for a few months trying to figure out what do we want our online to accomplish. And this was really coming out of 2020.
yeah.
During 2020, everybody was online. Like we jumped in. We had not streamed any service before COVID. But then we get around to 2021 and 2022 and 2023, and this is where we began to ask the question, what does this really look like? What are we trying to accomplish here? And for us, what we ultimately came the decision that we came to was that we view online as a front door. So again, trying to think of it, may have either this weekend or last weekend. No, it was this weekend. I met a family that was in the army and are traveling they're moving to Arizona from Europe. Okay. So they had some some roots in the valley. They've chosen to move to Prescott. And, I'm meeting them for the first time and I ask them, "How did you get connected? What was it?" Well, it was the online.
Yeah.
So they found us and they got connected through our online. So people watch online before they ever show up. And we've known this for a long time. The front door is turned into the screen door. It is that screen that gives people a window into who we are and what we're about. The struggle that we have is you can't fulfill what he says
Mhm.
online. You can't be in that community. You're not sitting there and singing these words over people. They can't hear you singing these words. You can't have them singing it over you let's just be honest, online is just bad audio anyway, right? As great as any church wants to make it, it's only as good as the speaker on your phone or the speaker on your TV. Like it
Yeah.
just
Mm.
you you can set your own controls and it may be coming to your TV sounding great, but you have some dumb setting on your TV that it's not the movie mode, it's the music mode or the standard mode or whatever, and it just sounds bad, right? Whatever it is. And so there's so many variables to that. It's hard to make it sound good. And so most people just kind of check out of that part of the thing anyway. And so you're
Yeah.
just missing something. You're missing those moments in the lobby. You're missing the ability to have somebody come and pray over you or to pray with you or for you to see somebody breaking down uh, beside you and they're weeping and you get to sit over next to them and put an arm around them and that stuff happens every week and we you miss that like when we
Yeah.
think about the gifts of the spirit and serving and hospitality and like all of those things that God calls the body of Christ to be, you miss it when you're just tuning in for the sermon. And so for us the online experience has really just been a way for us to um, show people who we are, that they can experience a tad bit of who we are through the online, and it's an ability for people to keep up. Like in a series like this, we know you're going to get sick. You're going to have kids that are sick. You got to go to a graduation in Vermont or whatever the thing is. You got to go visit family in this. You're going to miss, and so it gives you a great opportunity to stay connected to your church. But it should never, ever, ever be the end of the journey with the connection to the church. So for those who, let me talk about my aunt for just a moment. I have an aunt, Aunt June, uh, who is my favorite aunt. My mom had 4 sisters. There were 5 women, and Aunt June's always been my favorite. So I'll just say that out loud. Aunt June watches us online every week. Every week. She she attends this tiny little church in Kentucky. All right. So this tiny little, I mean, tiny, like 20 people, 15 to 20 people church in Kentucky. She did tell me one time that she took one of my sermons or sent a link and
Oh,
told the guy, "Why can't you preach more like this?" I'm like, "Don't do that, Aunt June. That's not helpful.
that's not helpful.
That's
Poor
not helpful."
guy's trying to
Poor
just
right?
shepherd the flock.
He's just
Yeah,
it wasn't helpful.
probably
But she is
bivocational. Oh,
she's in it every week. But that being said, she has a pastor.
Mhm.
She has a church that she goes to every week. So what she experiences on through Quad City is supplemental to the body that she's already connected
Yeah.
to. She knows the names of those 15, 17, 25 people who show up. They know her. She knows them. She can go talk to that pastor and say things that aren't necessarily encouraging. But
just hurtful.
she's
It
got
feels
she's got those
definitely. That's
relational.
why.
Yep.
Why it's his favorite
Yep.
aunt right there. That's just why right there.
That's
It makes
well,
That
sense.
feels.
she was my
That's
favorite before that, but
That's
that
just
that helped.
old Southern mean ladies. Yeah.
She's sweet. She's not mean.
I bet they say sweet things meanly.
Yep.
You mean things
It means,
sweetly.
yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. I mean, oh, bless his heart. That's what she taught. She literally just said that to him. Yep. Yep.
All that being said, if you're if you're one of those who join us online, we just would highly encourage, like you're missing out on this connection with the body. It is
Mm,
imperfect. It is frustrating. It is going to come with Paul is experiencing it here, right? There
Yeah.
are some people who are doing dumb things, but he doesn't give up on the church because, as we learn in Ephesians, it is the manifold wisdom of God. It's the thing that he uses to
mm,
show off, even to the spirit realm, the goodness of who he is, how great he is.
mm.
It even is shown up in the church. So there's so much good that happens even in the hour and 20 minutes that you're on the campus, like, just to get to experience that, it can't be duplicated.
Yeah.
I'm convinced it cannot be duplicated online.
No.
You just can't. And so, if you're one of those, dig in, come, just get be a part of a campus. Go jump into PV, jump into Prescott, or again, if you're out of state somewhere, just let this be supplemental to whatever it is that you still need to be in community. You still need to have somebody you're confessing sin to. You
Mm.
still need to have somebody who is holding you to account, somebody who's encouraging you to remember the gospel. Like,
Mm.
we need those things, and they need to come with eyeball to eyeball conversations, and that can't just happen through the screen.
Yep.
Yeah, so a couple things is, one, I remember the guy who, we I think it was the first time or when we got to the prayer piece. He just normally watches online, but he came in because he's like, "I
Yep.
can't get a prayer."
Yeah,
I sit on my couch, so he came in, got the prayers, said
yeah,
the thing to you, so really cool. Just that's kind of the stuff you miss out on.
Yeah.
yeah,
You just don't get that feel. Um, you know, I would say even this podcast, right? We're not, like, trying to push this to the world.
right.
Mhm.
This is just for our church.
Yep.
Like, if there are people who listen that aren't necessarily a part of Quad City, well, that's great,
Yeah.
but our intention is not like, we're not trying to make names for like, we don't
No.
that's not
I'm actually asking Nate, how do we monetize this? I want there to be a AG1 commercial
You're
in
so
the middle of
ridiculous. You're
this.
so ridiculous. But again, it was just something that became a, oh, we just want to help bless our body, bless the people to help encourage to make them better disciples. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole goal of what this has been. And I was sharing with a couple pastors at something I was at, and they were asking about it. And I was like, yeah, man, we don't like ours is not intended to go out. It's just for the church. Like, oh man, that's really cool. So same way with the song. That song wasn't
Yeah.
written in a way to like, oh man, we're trying to send this out. Again, if it made it out to another church, well, cool, but that's not the intention.
Yep.
It was really just this is just for our body. And so which I love, right? We're trying to pour into, and you get that in your body if you're connected to a
Yep.
church and you're going to funerals or weddings and celebrations and spending time with people. Actually, the online conversation is interesting. There are more pastors, and I think you've seen this too, who are actually doing away with it
Yep.
Mhm.
and just releasing stuff on Monday,
Yeah.
like the sermon or
Yeah.
that, because they don't want people
Right.
to be able to have this as a something you could substitute.
Yeah.
To actually, there's a weight that I think pastors are beginning to feel to go, man, have we made it too easy for people to just, sit at home and do church?
Yep.
And again, I think you said it too once that you don't call it church when you're at home. You say, I worshiped at home with my family.
Right.
Like to make sure that we put that into
Yes.
context is that isn't church.
Right.
Yeah.
It is just us. Again, with my family, and I'm worshiping, and I'm happen to be in a experience that others are also experiencing, but it's not church.
Yeah.
It is very, very different. And so, I think my kid, my Amos says, "Dad, are you going to the building today? You going to church? We have church today. Is it like the big building we're going to?" I'm like, "Yeah, but we're going to the thing. We're going to it because the hope would be that we're always experiencing some aspect of word. But yeah, there is
Yeah.
different when we're like in this place with this people
Yeah.
that they understand the significance of it. So it is
Yeah.
interesting to see people, churches, kind of going, man, I don't know if this online thing is what we want anymore. Yeah, like you said, we all were forced to do it
Yeah.
Yeah.
in 2020, and now we're going, huh, maybe maybe having like a whole campus because there's a lot of churches who do that. They have online campuses, and that's
Yep.
the what they do. But I'm glad that how we do it is, yeah, you can see if we're crazy or not.
Yeah.
But you only get a little bit of the crazy online.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
We can edit some of it.
Yep.
you don't get to see all of it.
I'm reminded of a series that we did, I don't know, 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. We called it Ecclesia.
Mm.
Nate, I think it might be helpful if we threw that in the show
Yeah.
notes just to, that's the picture of the church. That is what this thing is talking about. And in that series, I tried to give um a biblical reason why this gathered group of people matters. Like, why do we care about it? Why should we become a member of a church? Why should we do that? And so we did this whole series called Ecclesia, and
August of 21.
Mhm.
there you go.
It's the first series I watched. I was interviewing.
Mm,
He was like, "Hey, you wanna know who we are? This is who we are." He talked about all the core values.
yeah,
Essentially,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
that's what kind of birthed a lot of what we see n and again, it was all the stuff they're already doing, right?
Right.
But yeah, that was one of the first ones.
And so it gives you an opportunity to kind of understand why this gathered thing is important. Like you just can't get this just through a screen. And so just encourage you if you're bored over the next couple of
It's
weeks,
only
just
4.
Yeah, it's
only
only 4
four.
It's only
episodes,
4.
Yep.
I remember the
4
bumper, it's
sermons.
Jason downtown in Prescott
Yep.
talking. Yeah. So it was one of the first ones we watched as a family considering like, "Hey, is this the essentially the community we wanna be a part of?
Yep.
Is this the ecclesia that we feel like, 'Oh, yeah, let's go. They have things that they're gonna offer, and we have things we're gonna offer,' and so I think it's a good mix." But that was one you had just done it, you're like, "You should check out this series. They'll tell you who we are."
Yep.
So it's super helpful. When I do so if you've listening and have done discovering with me before I changed roles, you heard me say, "Hey, if you want to know who our church is, go listen to this series." This is one of the ones that I always try to help people go back and listen to because it
Yep.
does like nothing's changed
Yeah.
in those years.
Right.
The vision is still really the same.
Yep.
So it really is it's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, since we don't have any questions, I think this is where we're gonna land the plane. We hope you
No
guys no
questions.
questions.
It means it was
You did a
completely
really good
clear.
job.
Or people were just like, that was too muddy already. And we don't want to stir it up anymore.
Now that was like the least like Paul trying to it was help like just end with
Just the gospel. Just
yeah,
give
man.
the
Yeah.
gospel.
Just
Yep.
give people the gospel.
Awesome. Well, we hope you guys have a good week, and we'll see you guys Sunday.